Hello and welcome to Career Talks with Mentoria. Our passion is to help you discover yours, and through these webinars and talk shows, we want to give you a very realistic understanding of the career you're heading into. The more you know, the more informed your career or educational decisions. Today, we're going to have an incredible conversation on the world of esports and building a career in esports. If you're a gamer and want to become an esports athlete or want to build a career in esports, this video is for you. We have with us two very special guests, Jaideep Sood, Vice President of Business Development of Global Esports, and Vatsal Lonial, VP of Esports at Global Esports. Both of them have had professional careers in esports, nationally as well as internationally. They're passionate about the gaming community and have some exciting YouTube channels as well as live streams for gamers and esport aspirants.
Hey guys, my name is Jaideep Sood. I started off as a hotelier by profession, and gaming was a passion. And I started off my gaming career in a very unconventional way. I convinced a group of really talented coders and platform providers that I could turn their community into a business. And yes, once I convinced them, I went for it. I took that platform, started hosting tournaments on it, started going to brands, and hence started my small journey in esports.
Hi, my name is Vatsal Lonial, also known as Nightmare 2K. Initially, I started off with, when I was old, like when I was in school, I started with just playing cricket, and from that, my transition to esports was very unique. So at first, my father wanted me to, do something in cricket, and me being as a kid also wanted to do something in cricket. But during the course for like 2 to 3 months, my father bought me a PC, and that was the moment where, my transition from being, thinking of being a cricketer to being an esports athlete started. And then from cricket to esports to managing the teams here at Global Esports, the journey has been phenomenal. I think the first LAN event that I won, I think it was ILG Chennai, and right from there till representing India at the Overwatch World Cup, I think Overwatch World Cup was the biggest and the proudest moment for me in the esports career.
Back when I was in college, there were no multi-million dollar tournaments. There was no sending India to the World Cup. But my proudest moment would be enabling youngsters like Vatsal and other athletes who I've managed, and sending them to countries like Philippines, China, and US. Vatsal went to USA to represent India and play the game. So back when I was with Mammoth Academy actually went to ASOS ROG qualifiers in Philippines, and they performed really well over there. When I was with Global Esports, we enabled Team India and Team Singapore to go to the Overwatch World Cup. So making sure that these athletes and their dreams come true has been one of my biggest achievements.
So I'd love to know, how does a mass media graduate, which is Vatsal, and a hotel management graduate, which is Jaideep, end up building thriving careers in esports, which is completely sort of converse to what you guys actually studied from an education perspective. So what's your journey been like?
I think when I completed my 12th, I was pretty much into, mass media and communication, like how actually news reporting works, what's behind it. I was very keen to understand it. And that's when I gave my IP university exams to get into a journalism college. But it was the same time when I was gaming as well. When I finished my bachelor's degree in journalism and mass communication, I was at peak of my game. Then, you have this thing, it's with everyone, that they have finished the college and, they have to, again, your parents would expect you that you have to now get a job. And you have to do something related to journalism or mass communication. You have to get into something. But at that time, my goal was what I can do in gaming. What career opportunities are there? For me, that time the only career opportunity was going professional. But I think it was 2017. Overwatch didn't really have that base set in India, the esports base set in India. So I had to play and work in an advertising agency, which was Haku Odo Percept. After, I think, working there for 8 to 9 months, I had this option in my life where I had to either pick esports or either continue in advertising. And that was, I think, the toughest decision I had to make in my life. I had a lot of friends, family members telling me that gaming is not a sustainable career. It will get you nowhere. But my instance at that point was, I think I should go ahead with, something I love doing. I have passion for it and I think I can do it. And I was lucky enough that my parents at that moment supported me because they saw me participating in a lot of tournaments and I was winning as well. So they thought, okay, he has been, studying, college kiya, ab job bhi kara advertising mein, but maybe give him a chance on what he wants to do. From, having a normal 9 to 5 job, I was playing as a professional player in a team called Arc Nemesis. So I think that sums up. And then playing for 3-2 months and then getting into a team, getting proper salary every month, just like my 9 to 5 job, which, to be honest, I was not enjoying. There was nothing new. In games, in esports, there's everything, every day, there's something new that you get to learn.
That's beautiful, man, Vatsal. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think that's an incredible story. And I hope and wish that, with doing what we're doing, we can create more stories like you where people actually get to choose what they're passionate about and what they enjoy instead of society dictated, choices or careers or conventional careers. Because there's a huge assumption, right, that getting into non-heard of careers like esports and gaming may not pay you enough, and it's beautiful that your parents also supported you throughout that journey. And I'm just going to sort of ask a counter question or a sub question as part of this one, right? So do you think that the fact that you were winning tournaments, the fact that there was some achievement there, and the fact that maybe from the tournaments or from the winnings of the tournaments you were also bringing in money home, do you think that would have motivated your parents to give it a shot, or do you think they would have given you the opportunity either way?
It's the same, when I was in college, I was playing the entire day. And that time also my parents supported me in a way. It was, during that time moment, I was not earning enough. Like a buck, like 500,000 rupees, local cafe tournaments, we were just winning. And, during that time, it was not enough. You cannot call it a sustainable income. So during that moment, my mom and my brother were the main 2 individuals from my family who supported me a lot. And they said, yes, you keep doing it. If you think after a certain time you can get a sustainable income, then we are happy to support you. But you have to manage things, because I was in college, I was studying as well. I had to, I have to clear the exams as well. So I had to, it's not like if parents are supporting you, you have to just do that one thing. You need to understand that you have to get a degree as well. You have to complete, there's a ladder. So you have to take it step by step.
Jaideep, would you want to go next in terms of yours is the larger sort of transition, right, from hotel management to esports and gaming. So what's your journey been like?
I mean, it's not a large transition as per se. Gaming has always been a passion. I was connected to gaming throughout school, throughout college, even in College Fest, organizing tournaments. We used to organize tournaments for our school and college as well. Was the fun part, and I saw myself doing it somehow back then as well. I started my own restaurant in 2016, and life was going right. But then, as I mentioned earlier, I met these group of individual coders and guys who made a platform just for fun, right? These guys were a community. They built a community and they were having fun. When I approached them, I told them I can turn this into a business. Why don't you give me a shot? Is when I joined this company. It wasn't even a company back then. It wasn't registered. It was just a community called Drag to Death. I joined this as their business associate, and for a year went out to brands and guys who were willing to sponsor tournaments for esports, made them, called them, told them, there's an opportunity of reaching out to young kids, which is your target audience, and started tournaments, hosting tournaments. And slowly it was a cafe level tournament, went to an online tournament, and went to then LAN events in India, and then hosting one of the biggest LAN events, Indian Esports Championship, back in 2016. So it's been a grind since then, from hosting tournaments to then moving on to managing teams, then moving on to creating content, discovering content as one of the driving forces of esports in India, to then joining Global Esports. Has been a crazy journey.
So, I'd love to know, what does Global Esports do, the company that both of you represent?
Global Esports is a player-first, content-focused esports gaming and lifestyle organization. We've built ourselves with the sole focus of providing a platform to everyone who is exploring career opportunities in the world of esports. And whether he's an esports athlete or a content creator or just someone who wants to voice his opinion, we provide them with opportunities. Our primary focus is on building teams, professional teams around esports titles. But since the lockdown, we've also slightly pivoted into hosting tournaments and representing content creators, because that was the need for the hour, and that's how we've grown. So those are our basic verticals for revenue. But what we do is have teams and have teams represent. So we currently host the Team India and Team Singapore for the Overwatch World Cup. We also are the record holders for the Fortnite world record for the highest score in the World Cup. So yeah, that's a very, very short and tiny way of explaining what Global Esports does.
So what about you? How did you go about joining Global Esports?
So initially, as I told you, I was a player, and since when I had the option where I had to choose esports and the job I was working at, I joined a team called Team Arc Nemesis, and we were probably back then was the best team in India in Overwatch. So couple of months down the line, I would say, I think 3 to 4 months, we have won all the tournaments, and then suddenly the only competitor Team Arc Nemesis had was Global Esports. So I was somehow playing against Global Esports in every tournament, and it's like in every finals there are only two teams, be it whatever, it would be Team Arc Nemesis and Team Global Esports. And for the first 3 to 4 months we have been winning against Global Esports, but down the line, we had this in our mind, we got overconfident. If I had to simplify in words, we got overconfident, and they worked really hard to beat our strats in everything. I think after we lost the ICGC tournament in Goa against Global Esports, I decided that I would, focus on my solo individual skill for few months so I could get a better opportunity. Because, I was very demotivated by just coming second again and again and again. So I took few months off from competitive gaming, like a proper team, and I started grinding my solo individual skills. And after a few months, Global Esports decided to make another team which will be called Global Esports Phoenix. The main team was Global Esports Alpha, and the second team was Global Esports Phoenix, GE Phoenix. So one of the captains decided that let's talk to Vatsal and let's ask him if he'd be interested to join in.
esports now is a global multi-billion-dollar industry. However, most Indian students or Indian parents haven't heard of building a career in esports, and it is very far away from being one of the top 10 consideration list for anybody to pursue. So, if you were to tell us what are the various careers that one can build in esports and a little bit about each, what would you say?
So basically, when you look at the esports, yes, what people see in the front of esports is the players winning it big, taking it big, and team organizations who running the business, making it big. But there's a whole ecosystem behind it. So if I were to list down a few, career choices which one can build in esports is one is a design team. All esports organizations, even tournament organizations, need a design team backing them up. There's a production team involved, video production, live broadcasting. There's support staff for the team, so a team needs managers, psychologists, and other kind of staff, a chef maybe. So it's a huge ecosystem. Then there are the athletes who play in front of you, who are the guys who getting the glory. Then there are also casters and analysts. There's marketing and sales. There's content creators who you see on YouTube and Twitch and other platforms where people live stream. There are guys like us, business dev managers. There's copywriters. There are referees. There's a legal team behind esports. There's finance, PR. So everything which you see in other industries is also a part of esports, and you can also build a career around that post having an esports career as an athlete or entering the industry completely new after being a graduate. Now, delving a little deep more into opportunities, I'll say I mentioned casters earlier, right? So what are these casters? You can simply compare them to commentators in the world of sports who break down every moment of the game play by play and tell you exactly what's happened. They set the narrative of the game, and that's how you enjoy watching regular sports. That's the same thing happening with esports also. These casters now are explaining to you a more fast-paced game, and are casting it play by play, analyzing the game for you and making sure you know what exactly is happening at a much faster speed than what happens in traditional sports. Now, coming to some other opportunities also, there is something called, which is a very, very interesting role, called the in-game observer. Now, what is this in-game observer? As you have cameramen operating different cameras in the field, you have in-game observers observing different parts of the game where the action is going down, and it is their job to bring you the action, right? So they are the ones who are capturing that action, which then is narrated by the caster and then coming to you live on your screens. So, and then there is a whole production crew behind enabling these guys to make sure it happens. So someone switching screens, making sure the score is coming on time. So it's a whole ecosystem, guys, and once you discover it and once you realize that there's so many opportunities, then the world of esports seems more lucrative.
Perfect. Vatsal, anything you'd like to add to that?
No, I think JD included every aspect, but I think I haven't seen any esports psychologist in India yet, but in NA and EU, teams have started to have esports psychologists, because it's very hard for esports players to deal with a lot of stress. There's so many things going on when they are playing. Either they win, they lose. There's so much going. The stress level is just too much. So I would I really want someone from India from that esports psychologist side for sure. Yes.
Very interesting. So I also want to know, how does the economic model for all of this work, right? So for example, you said that there are esports psychologists, there are chefs, you've got people who are casting, people who are commenting, people who are analyzing the game, you've got in-game observers, right? So who pays all of these people, or how does the economics for all of this work?
Let me give you an example first. The Indian Premier League, right? There are esports organizations who take part into big leagues, big tournaments. They house in-house esports athletes who pay them to play for these teams. Their employment contracts. These teams then house the support staff in terms of managers, chefs, and psychologists and etc. They're called support staff. They support the team into competitions. Now the other side of it, the flip side, is tournament organizers. What the tournament organizers bring is the huge viewership they get in the brands, they get in the sponsors. They also hire these analysts, they also hire these observers to make sure that the action to you is coming in a systematic, guided way. So it's a whole lucrative system. So talking about corporate giants, so recently in India we've seen corporate giants like Paytm, Alibaba, the recently banned Tencent, and even our homegrown Nazara Gaming investing heavily into esports. And there are a lot of training institutes. I wouldn't call them training institute, esports academies coming in India, which are training athletes now to reach or join organizations. There's also now, with hardware and mobile phones being so accessible, the ecosystem is just driving through these huge companies.
Got it. Understood. So, could you tell us a little bit about how esports is evolving in India and what are the opportunities that are coming up specifically in India? Because you said, like, for example, an esports psychologist isn't something that has come up in India. So, could you tell us a bit about the opportunities that are up and coming in the Indian esports industry and how this industry is growing?
As I mentioned earlier, it's a growing industry. I'd still call it at a very nascent stage. There's availability for everyone right now, not only a psychologist who's not shown up. Teams need better editors, better designers, not even teams, content creators, right? With the pandemic hitting us 6 months back, the content consumption has increased. Content creators need to put out more content. So when they need to put out more content, so either they can create content or sit back and edit it. So there's been a huge increase in demand for the design teams, the graphic designers, editors, animators. So that's one which thing. Then of course, as Vatsal mentioned, support staff is one thing teams require. So as teams are growing and competing at higher levels, the support staff a team needs increases as well. And then one more, now esports organizations are also hiring marketing and sales reps, and tournament organizers are hiring marketing and sales reps. Why? Because they need to go out and sell their content. They need to have those sales reps to get in the money for the content. So that's how the industry has been growing, and different job opportunities are now opening. There's also a huge legal side requirement in esports as well, because once organizations are growing, there are a lot of players where the aspect of player transfers, player employment contracts of players, their talent contracts, all this comes in. So the ecosystem is growing, and then it just gets in all the aspects of several industries with terms of good quality food. So we need to make sure esports athletes and these content creators who are now being shifted into boot camps, and so they need to get the right nutrition. So that's when you get good chefs, so they can balance nutrition, not have give players certain food before a big match, or make sure that they are in the right most attentive mind. So that's how it's the ecosystem is really huge.
Another thing, and not something that I'm particularly happy about, but you constantly hear parents saying, or parents telling their children कि यार तू पूरा दिन गेमिंग करते रहेगा तो पैसे कब कमाएगा, right? Can you tell us a little bit, or if we were to send a small message to any of these parents saying something like this to their kids, what would you say about the lucrativeness of careers in esports?
I think right at the start, even if it's game editing or anything, a parent should, like, at the first they should be really supportive to their child. Like, it's very difficult for any individual to grow up at a point where his parents are not supporting him. Like, what he wants to do, parents shouldn't be like very harsh or hard on the individual. That's I think the most important thing. At the early stage where he's trying to learn and grow into it, I think at that point parents should be the one, parents should be the one supporting them like a lot.
Got it. Jaideep, anything you'd like to add or say to this?
Yeah, so basically what parents need to understand, and what we as people in the esports industry need to push forward, is education. and making sure that there's proper education for the various opportunities in esports. All opportunities in today's date, I think, are lucrative, and any opportunities which pays your bills is, I think, okay in the eyes of your parents. So what we need to do is educate them about these opportunities and tell them that this is a sustainable business model, explain to them. And I think it is happening, right? In the past 6 months, we've seen the surge of content creators. We've seen content creators and these kids with the PUBG Mobile World League happening in July, I think. We saw one of the highest viewerships as well. We've seen these kids grow. We've seen these kids earn more salaries than a corporate individual would earn by doing a 9 to 6 job. So I think education is something which is most important, and we like Mentoria, as well as we have to work towards educating parents. And so at Global Esports, we've already started partnering with universities to make sure that education for esports is available out there, and we work with our PR teams to do that as well.
So if I as a student, or if I as an individual, irrespective of age, want to begin or build a career in esports, one, how do I assess if I have the right talent? And two, what would you believe would be my first 10 steps that I must take to begin my journey to build a career in esports?
So if I'm a newcomer into esports, first thing I need to identify which niche in esports do I fall under. Am I really good at the game? Do I want to go competitive? Do I understand the game really well? Can I speak? Do I want to become an analyst? So you really need to, or I'm really good at seeing the game and telling you what has happened. Am I good at the narrative? Should I become a caster? Or I'm a very entertaining personality. My parents and my family members have been laughing at my jokes. I should become a content creator. That there's so much opportunity. So you need to identify what niche do you belong to, or what area into esports you want to dwell into. Then the second or third step is just grinding it. Just starting. Making sure you put something out there for the world to see. This also acts as your portfolio when you reach out to organizations who are into this field. And if tomorrow someone comes or writes an email to me, I'm really good at this, I would want to dwell deeper into who that person is, how passionate he is about doing this, because at the end it is an unconventional career. Convincing his family would also require him to show some skill or show some portfolio that he's built at the start. So the first couple of steps is build a portfolio for self. Make sure that you are ready to put in the hard work, and probably reach out to organizations on social media, on LinkedIn, and make sure you then follow what they say.
So we know that there are a ton of gamers out there, right? If I as an individual were to assess, am I a gamer? So it's like can I play cricket for fun, or can I play cricket professionally, right? So how do I assess whether I can really get into esports as an athlete, or as a full-time career, or do I just like gaming as a hobby?
So gaming and esports is like apple and oranges, but there is there's a stark difference to it, wherein esports requires a certain set of skills, training. It is a professional sport. It requires certain level of commitment. It requires potential strategies and some discipline. Make sure if you're willing to put in that, and take your casual gaming career ahead. Some people do just casual gaming for fun, take it as an entertainment. So that's the difference between esports and gaming, wherein one is a more competitive way to go about it, and the other is just enjoying the game. A casual gamer can become a brilliant content creator. Esports athletes also today are becoming content creators, but you need to understand the difference on whether you can actually put that kind of mental and physical strain on yourself to jump in from casual gaming to esports. If you have the skill, that is something you will identify it yourself. You can. So there's a lot of small scale mid-tier tournaments which happen in India. Before COVID used to also happen on local cafe levels, school levels. If you think you need to test out waters, what you can do is easily take part in those tournaments. Those small online tournaments, see if you reach somewhere and then just scale up or level up the competition slowly and grind it up to the higher levels where people will recognize you, people will see what you're doing. Or if you think you are an entertainer, just put up that first YouTube video.
Yes, I would like to add a few things in this. So, like at the first, you have to set the base of what you have to do. Either you have to, base would be for me picking a game, a platform on how I need to proceed. And then grinding it out. It's not an easy way, but you, again, if you have to reach at that level, you have to grind it out. You have to keep playing. You have to put minimum, I would say, I have put 10 to 12 hours every day just grinding the same game. And how an individual will identify is, for me, as you keep playing, you keep proceeding to a tier level. It's like a ladder. You play for 3 months, you put a step up, and then for another 2 months, you keep going, you keep climbing. So if it's not happening, that means there's something wrong.
Now, once I have done that, once I've reached a point where I've decided that yes, I want to go professional, what do I do next?
At a certain point, usually players write out to organization, write out to their team managers, contact the team members to give a chance for a tryout in the team. Or I would say, if a manager is there, so I would give an example of myself. If I'm managing a Valorant team where I need one player to fill my role, so I will do all my background research, all the proper research on which is the upcoming player who plays this role. So I would myself scout that player. This is the upcoming player. He has reached this level. This is the winnings he has earned in the past 3 to 4 years. So he himself can reach out to the managers, to the players. Also from the organization's end, they could also do the same.
I've seen that there are a ton of different kinds of live streaming platforms for gaming, right? You got Twitch, you got YouTube. Could you tell us a little bit about some of these platforms and why they're so important to the gaming community?
With millions of fans watching gamers like Ninja, Tufu and Shroud on a daily basis abroad, in India we have some homegrown stars like Mortal and Scout, and they have been streaming on YouTube most, with millions of followers, with millions of subscribers, and lakhs of people watching them daily. So seeing this, there's also been a rise in the OTT industry of live streaming OTT industry in India, where you have players like Loco coming in, players like Rio TV, Nemo TV coming in, and providing the platform to these gamers to live stream and reach out to brands and other just have a place where all their content is stored.
So I wanted to say YouTube, I think the primary streaming platforms for all the players, content creators right now would be Twitch and YouTube. As of yesterday, if you will see, so there was an event by Mr. Beast where all the content creator, professional players from both YouTube and Twitch had a live quiz competition, and the concurrent watching for that live watching was above 1 million. I think that already broke all the records which were there in the past. So the participation of every individual has just been a little too extra since the COVID. So because everyone is engaging, everyone wants to watch or consume some content, either not just content, I would say, I mean, even if a professional player, if a Valorant professional player or a CODM or any game professional player is streaming and he's able to provide that information that an individual requires. If I have to go professional and I can see another professional playing, explaining on what he's doing, why he's doing, so there's a lot to learn from all of these streams and both from content creator and professional athletes.
So one of the reasons why these apps have, the numbers have increased so much is because it's again, I would call it niche content, just esports and not content creation at last. It's niche content. It's both a win-win for the publishers, the consumers, and the advertisers, because the consumer is getting free curated content. The advertiser is getting the audience it requires, the reach it requires, and these OTT apps are meeting their CPMs, and so because of the large traffic which they're driving, so it's a win-win-win situation for all, and hence it's boosting the growth of esports largely in India as well.
What I'm hearing is that these platforms, of course, help it make economically much more viable, because it helps you reach out to a much larger community and therefore attract endorsements and brands and so on and so forth to advertise on the content that gets created. I'm going to delve a little deeper into the esports industry now, and start off with, okay, so if I'm a beginner who believes that I have the right skill set to become a professional athlete, how do I connect with a manager, or how do I connect with teams?
I think by simply probably a message or an email with a list of all the achievements, how he started, a brief, I would say. So we could find value, or we could give him the value that he requires. That would be, I think, the first step how a beginner, can reach out to managers or teams.
As I said before, the 10 steps which we earlier dwelled upon is, climb up the ladder, make sure you have the right skill set. When you believe you have the right skill set, reach out to said managers, teams on, various platforms, your social media. You can just even write them, a letter if you want, and something unconventional. You can do that, and people do respond.
Exactly.
And because these are, there are a lot of startups in India right now. They actually read it. They are out there looking for the talent. Another way to make sure that it's going somewhere is put all your content on platforms like YouTube, Twitch, live stream on Choreo, Nemo, whatever, whichever platform you pick. Start doing it, and either you will get a response, positive, negative, can't promise. But if you're good enough, you will be recognized, because everyone wants a piece of the pie. Everyone is looking for the next big thing. Everyone is looking for content creators on a daily basis. So just make sure, if you think you have the right skill set, put in the little hard work which is required with it.
Now, we've read that players in esports earn money from sponsorships, from endorsements, and from league salaries. Can you help us understand the difference between these three things?
Yeah, so basically, one of the biggest revenue streams for these players is either prize pool from the tournaments they win, or the salaries they get from esports organizations. So apart from the three you've mentioned, the biggest revenue source will be the salaries these players get when they're under employment contracts at the various esports organizations. Apart from that, sponsorship is when a certain esports organization is sponsored by a brand, or the player is sponsored by a brand. They sort of put in a sum of money and help, content is driven, the player's content is driven with the brand. Endorsement might be a non-endemic sponsor entering, non-endemic brand, entering the space, would want a one-off engagement, a one-off campaign, would probably endorse one player or a content creator to do one small activity with him. So those are endorsements. And league salaries are basically players are paid a minimum amount of salary to play a big league. For example, the Riot's league for League of Legends, a player's base salary to play that league is $150,000 yearly. So you can't pay a player below that. So those are league salaries. It's very similar to the concept of IPL, where during that period, the player is paid a minimum amount of salary, and then he earns from other sources like team sponsorships, individual endorsements. So how it works in regular sports is exactly the same way it works in esports, where all these players are then backed by their talent managers. There are talent management agencies dedicated to esports talent in India. apart from us, also there are a lot of talent agencies out there.
Jaideep, could you give me a couple of India-relevant examples of sponsorships or endorsements of brands with esports teams and players and so on and so forth?
So a very basic example of start to home example was Team India when they went to the Overwatch World Cup was sponsored by Razer, one of the premium esports brands all over the world. Every kid wants to own a Razer gear, so the Indian team was sponsored by Razer. There have been other esports talent in India who've also been sponsored by companies like OnePlus and other mobile brands. There have also been these tournaments who get sponsored, like Mountain Dew has been the biggest sponsors over the years. There's also been Airtel getting into the space. So a lot of brands are entering into the space, and it's a growing market, and more brands are on their way. It's just a start.
Now, I want to know from you guys, what is the difference between streamers, professional players, and team managers from a roles and responsibilities perspective?
So I'd like to start with the team managers / we could call it talent managers for basically content creators. So their job would be to handle everything except for what they are doing. So if I have to give an example of a professional player, everything related to the game is their part, and everything not related to game, be putting the right mindset, helping them, motivating them, getting gears for them, booking hotel tickets, managing all the stuff. So all they have to do and focus is, their focus should be on just playing. And same for content creators, their focus should be on making content and not doing extra XYZ things. That's where team managers, talent manager comes in and help them build into a better individual.
A player, a esports athlete is basically someone who's playing the game at a competitive level, at a very high level, and most probably representing an organization or having his own team. A skilled player, individual or a team playing at a competitive level is a esports athlete or a esports team. Wherein it comes to content creator is generally an entertainer who is entertaining the audience. He creates content. He could be a blogger. It could be news. It could be social updates or any funny updates, vines, with all anyone who's creating content, putting it online. Example, Kenny Midati, why he's so associated to gaming is initially what he did was he used to record his gameplay and then have his voice over that gameplay about whatever his videos were about the topic he's going on. So there are a lot of opportunities for content creators. With what Vatsal explained, esports manager, I think he has the most in-depth knowledge about that. I could just give you some overheads on that. Is handling the registration of the teams, handling needs of individual players, setting scrims, practice matches for them, making sure they follow their timetable, managing their expenses. One of the biggest duty of a manager is making sure that the players do not overspend, the organization doesn't get burdened. At the same time, the players are getting enough for what they need, and so basically the expenses are in place. Making sure that the boot camp is in order, because these training facilities, sometimes people say it's a bunch of boys put into a hostel-like environment. It's not that. They're proper training facilities where all these things are taken care of, and managing the boot camp becomes a responsibility for the team manager as well. They also act as a bridge between the organization as the players. So he's basically the team manager, then becomes the confidant of the players, wherein they can tell him something they're not happy about, or something they want changed. So he acts as a bridge between the organization and the team. So those are basic duties, and then making sure the PR is on time, the PR, whatever is going out is on time, the social media updates are right, or the scores are reported properly. When they're traveling for LAN events now, it doesn't happen for the past 6 months, but when it resumes, making sure that accommodation and travel plans are in place, traveling with the team. So Vatsal, I think, has traveled 6 or 7 countries last year, just with the teams of Global Esports. So making sure all that travel is in place, and making sure their food, again, when they're traveling, it's a new place for them. So some of these kids have never flown out before, right? They've not seen. Some of these players have never sitting on a plane. So making sure that they're comfortable, making sure the accommodation perfect, and not hampering their gameplay is one of what an esports manager does.
So it's clear that there are several events for esports internationally. I mean, you've got League of Legends tournaments that generate millions of dollars in revenue in just ticket sales. Has that ever happened in India, an esports event earning millions of dollars in just ticket sales?
In India, the esports market is still growing. We have seen a couple of tournaments which were big enough if you compare it to League of Legends tournaments that are happening outside India. The prime example I could give you is PUBG Mobile Club Open and PUBG Mobile All Stars. So these two tournaments were jam-packed in, I guess, Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium, if I'm not wrong.
It was the Indira Gandhi Stadium in New Delhi.
Oh yeah, Indira Gandhi Stadium in New Delhi, and there weren't any system where people had to come in and buy the tickets, because since, as I mentioned, the esports scene in India is still growing, and putting that ticketing thing wouldn't be a right choice for now. Maybe sometime in the upcoming 2 to 3 years it could be, but again, this has happened. The ticketing system that we are talking about has already happened in the ESL 1, which happened in Mumbai, where we could witness. So me being an esports athlete, watching my idols playing there, and when they were coming in Mumbai for ESL 1 and witnessing those same individual and paying for it wasn't a big thing. It was really special for me. There was a system, and the event was sold out event.
India has a journey, and I think the journey will soon be completed with the rising stars, viewership increasing. In the lockdown, the viewership is massively increased. There are new stars which have come up, esports athletes which have come up, and content creators. I think with them being, and if in future a place happens, I think esports can be clubbed into with lifestyle and cosplay and different activities. Events have happened in the past, like DreamHack, where they have not only happened the esports event part of it, but they've had BYOC, bring your own computer, the LAN party style life, a little bit of lifestyle engagement, and other cosplay, pop-up shops, pop-up small events, the fun things, fun activities and elements added. So those have also been ticketed in India. But we've seen two of those editions, one in Mumbai, one in Delhi, both relatively, I think 70 to 75% occupancy in both. So I think it is reaching there, but it's still a couple of years away.
Do you ever think that esport tournaments would ever attract crowds that are equal to or larger than traditional, sports like cricket or hockey or anything like that, especially in India? And do you see the industry getting as big as that? How and by when do you see this happening?
So in terms of viewership, India has a huge viewership in terms of online. As of now, in terms of stadium, when we spoke, as I spoke about earlier, Indira Gandhi Stadium, the NSAI Dome has been sold out for esports events in the past. Wherein no esports event has been conducted in a stadium yet, so that is yet to be seen. That is uncharted territory for Indian esports right now. But let's see, I think in terms of numbers for hockey and everything else we've beaten in terms of cricket, we're not there yet, but with the COVID giving a boost to the online viewership, wherein the PUBG Mobile World League East had almost 10 million views, and the IPL today on Hotstar also ranging between 10 to 15 million views. We're not there yet, but we're getting really, really close.
Now, a question for both of you. What are the top Indian esports companies or startups that people could work with today, and how are they innovating or disrupting the Indian esports market?
I have only one in mind, that would be the Esports Club. So I think if you can compare the leading tournament organizer in India, I would say for now is NODWIN Gaming. The difference, I wouldn't say the difference, the speciality about the Esports Club is, they are working from a grassroots level for every game. They are hosting a lot of community tournaments. professional tournaments, different leagues for different games.
There have been a lot of startups in the Indian ecosystem around 5 to 6 years back. Can't really call them startups anymore. But there are a few companies apart from us which are disrupting the Indian space. One, he's mentioned the Esports Club. There's another tournament organization called Sky Esports is doing multilingual esports events, and making sure that there's another brand called Reticlex. The small regional tournament. They do national plus regional tournaments, which is really good. It educates people at the regional level of what esports is. There have been a lot of talent management startups. There have also been a lot of esports journalists. There are also a lot of startups which just are into esports journalism. So yeah, just you can find them on LinkedIn. There's not one disrupting market because there are many players in the space. So there are many popped up, and there are some established for over 5 years. So there's a difference. There's a huge ecosystem, but there's also a difference between companies who've been around for 5 to 6 years and companies who've just come into the space.
What would you guys say are the top 5 games in the Indian esports market from a professional athletes and playing perspective?
The top 5 would be CSGO, Valorant, CODM Mobile, Free Fire, and I think FIFA 19, yeah.
Well, the top 5 would be right now the most growing is Valorant. It's created its own ecosystem. It's doing really well. The other games would include CSGO. CS is played by many. I'll not say CSGO, I'll just say CS because it's played by many. FIFA 21, yes, it's got a very niche market. A lot of casual users in terms of gaming. A lot of users play FIFA. There is on top of the list usually would be PUBG, but sadly it's banned. So replaced by PUBG in the list would be Free Fire or Call of Duty Mobile, which people have now shifted their listing. Another huge casual game, not an esports title, but a game which is played casually is Ludo. You'll see a lot of people playing Ludo casually, and no, dude, I'm serious. It's there have been tournaments hosted for Ludo,
yes.
And you wouldn't believe that there is a demand for small tier tournaments for Ludo, and people are doing it. Bookmyshow, Paytm Insider, and all these platforms have Ludo tournaments on them.
That is insane. I didn't know that at all, and that is also incredible for any viewer to know that even a game like Ludo has a potential to get into the professional esports one.
And the fact it's not there's a certain age group of people playing the game Ludo. It's like even from kids to grown-ups to our parents, even people working at corporate industries are playing Ludo game, are participating in the Ludo tournaments. So that's great.
How do you believe parents can help their kids to build a career in esports? So say for example, a child decides, yes, I want to build a career in esports, right? How do you think a parent can help them in their journey?
Primarily, the first point, what I feel is lacking the most today is education about this industry, education about how many lucrative opportunities are there in this industry for their kids to get into. For an example, I'll tell you, content creators. The reason why content creators have such a big brand opportunity is because they have, these content creators have audience of 14 to 15-year-olds, the content creators, they're watched by millennials, which are the 14 to 35-year-old, and they have a huge, these guys don't read newspapers or they don't read magazines. They do not care about the traditional. They do not listen to FM. They do not care about the traditional marketing types of marketing. They consume content online. So these content creators has that huge market and have a lot of these attention span towards them. So it helps the brands, reach out to their target audience directly. And that's where the money is, right? So that's how it makes this opportunity, makes this field really lucrative. So, identifying how the trends are changing, I think we need to educate the parents on, how this shift is happening, how the whole game is changing. And once they realize that, I don't think anyone will have a problem with their child playing esports competitively or getting into content creation or all the aspects we've listed earlier. first is let them game, right? That's allowing them to play the game, giving them their own time, not to nag basically that don't play so much. As you earlier mentioned that gaming करते रहोगे तो कहाँ से कमाओगे, वो मत करो please. खेलने दो, give him some time, give him 6 months basically. 6 months दे दोगे and basically if he's good he'll realize this, he'll climb those stepping stones. 6 months of hard work. Even as a content creator, give him a couple of months to figure out what kind of content he wants to deliver and probably support him in his journey. Improve their people skills. So one of the most things I find where gamers lack is not having people skills, not being able to speak on stage, the confidence. So improve their people skills, make sure they can speak out properly. It's like any other career, right? Help them from the beginning, tell them about the opportunities, educate them about opportunities, help them make right decisions. So if they are really, really young, make them choose the right brand. Make sure that what they are doing falls in line with what they want to do. Lay out basically if these are young content creators, help them make a plan, right? Because that's what parents have experience. Use their experience to the kids' advantage. Help them plan out, right? If they have 10 content ideas, probably sit and help them write down 1, 2, 3, 4. You can do this, you can do this, you can do this, and probably chart it out for them and support their careers that way.
I think the first major step for a parent would be to support, emotionally and mentally, because there's so much time that individual would be thinking, do I have to do it? And parents need to give that boost to the individual. And second would be like, I would relate it to myself. If I would have to, like, I wanted to be an esports athlete on how I would start. As a parent, I would provide the right gear. I would include a proper PC equipment, an internet connection where he won't have to face difficulties during the process, during the ladder that he's climbing. So these would be the things that I can relate what I would do or what my parents would did for me. Basically, that's what my parents did for me.
Got it. Now, we've seen a lot of parents sort of get concerned about their children spending a lot of time on gaming, primarily also because of the evolving concept of technology addiction and the various psychological and physical consequences that it may potentially have. So what would you want to say to parents or children who are worried about technology addiction but still want to get into the career of esports and competitive gaming to help them understand what reality really is?
I mean, it's a very fine line between the two. If someone's serious about getting into the game, playing the game for hours, but it's not getting him somewhere, he's not climbing up that ladder as we mentioned, then probably you need to identify your own niche. You need to identify your child, niche of what your child is doing. If he's asking you to let him go for a tournament, right? You let him go for a tournament, if he wins, you'll know he wins, right? But if that's not happening, if you're not identified, it's probably make him understand it's time to move on. And this is I'm talking about at a very, very early age. Once they're in higher level secondary education, they'll realize it on their own, right? If they're not winning, it's not going anywhere. Also, it's experimental, right? You can, if someone's not really good at the game, but someone understands the game really well, his physical responses aren't that good, but he can understand the game really well, give a narrative, probably mold him and make him understand about the career opportunities. I think this is for the younger students I'm talking about, where the parents should understand what the child's strengths are and probably help him grow in that. I mean, as exactly as Vatsal also mentioned earlier, you need to realize where if he's just playing that game on that mobile phone or that computer for 10 to 12 hours a day for the past 6 months and it's gotten him nowhere. There are ranks in the game, you could keep eye on the ranks. If the rank is increasing, if they see the rank is increasing, ask your child, participate in a tournament if he wishes to take this seriously. If the child is not serious about it, if he's not wishing to take it seriously, and then take necessary action on it, probably forge a path into the competitive way or pull a little step back and tell him to concentrate on your studies. So they really, really need to identify that if their child is a casual gamer or an esports athlete, as I mentioned before, and then take the possible next steps.
Perfect. Sounds good. So before we conclude our conversation today, any last word of advice or any advice that you'd like to share with potential students that want to get into esports besides what you've already said?
A lot of people message me on Instagram and how the way to get into esports is, what is the way to get into esports? How do I do this? How do I do that? I've always told them, and I'll repeat the same thing: is find what you're good at. If you're really, really good at the game, start competing. If you really think you can, have other career opportunities, like I said, start putting up work. Start putting in the effort. Once you start putting in the effort, show what value you bring to, a community or an organization, or to basically your team. I think you will do wonders. You will be, you can build a career onto it. It's just, don't ideate, just execute.
Just keep grinding. That's what matters.
Thank you so much, Jaideep and Vatsal, for these absolutely incredible insights. I'm sure that any person who wanted to build a career in esports would get a lot of value after listening to your experiences and thoughts. To you watching this podcast, thank you for taking the time out. We hope we've been able to give you a deeper understanding of careers in esports. If you have any more questions, feel free to comment below and we'll try and answer them on the next webinar that we have on the subject, or write to us on info@mentoria.com. If you're unsure about which career you'd like to pursue, head on to our website to begin your journey of career discovery. Thank you for watching.